Hey guys, tonight we step into a world lit by lightning and shadow, into the very moment where Nikola Tesla first arrives on Earth. Imagine a Balkan village in the middle of the 19th century. Quiet, stone houses pressed against the slope of mountains, a church bell that tolls the hours, and fields stretching out under skies that can turn furious in an instant. The night of his birth, July 10, 1856. The sky does not stay gentle. Instead, a violent thunderstorm rips over the village of Smiljan in what was then the Austrian Empire. You hear the thunder crack like cannon fire, see forks of lightning split the dark, and feel the rain as sheets of needles pounding the wooden roofs. You wouldn't survive this kind of storm without a sturdy house. And even inside, the air feels charged, prickling at your skin as though the atmosphere itself carries a secret waiting to be revealed. In the candlelit room, a mother labors, a priest's wife bringing a child into the world, while nature itself seems determined to provide the most dramatic backdrop. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love for you to comment your location and the local time where you are listening right now. Because somewhere, someone might be drifting to sleep under their own stormy sky. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand in that room, though the walls are thin and the wind whistles through the shutters. The midwife glances nervously at the sky. Every bolt of lightning flashes across her face, sharp as a camera flash frozen in time. At the very moment the child enters the world, a blinding strike hits nearby, so bright it nearly erases the shadows. The midwife gasps and mutters, "This child will be a child of the storm." Tesla's mother, exhausted, whispers back that he may as well be a child of light. And it is this phrase, half superstition, half blessing, that clings to him for the rest of his life. Here is your first mainstream fact. Nikola Tesla was indeed born at midnight during a thunderstorm on July 10th, 1856. The record is clear, preserved in family memories and parish documents. Yet, the quirky detail, the midwife's omen of child of storm or child of light, has survived mostly in anecdotes, repeated so often that historians can't quite decide whether it was truly spoken or polished into legend later. That's where scholarly uncertainty creeps in. Did the storm really shape the story of Tesla's destiny? Or did his reputation retroactively bend the weather into symbolism? No one can say for certain, but the image is too powerful to abandon. As the newborn wails, the storm continues to rage. You feel the air heavy with ozone, the smell sharp and metallic, as though the very atmosphere is electrified. The father, Milutin Tesla, a Serbian Orthodox priest, offers a quiet prayer. In the candlelight, his voice competes with thunder. The mother, Georgina, called Juka, cradles the baby, her face soft despite exhaustion. She comes from a line of inventors herself, not in universities or workshops, but in kitchens and fields, crafting small tools and household devices with surprising cleverness. Later, Nikola will say he inherited his inventive spirit from her, not from the strict, sermon-writing father who would have preferred his son to enter the priesthood. You wander into the village, Smiljan, a scattering of homes, barns, and narrow paths. It's the kind of place where everyone knows one another, where stories pass faster than official news. Already whispers circulate. A storm child has been born. In a culture that leans on superstition, omens are taken seriously. The sky's violence becomes a prophecy, and neighbors speak of a boy marked for something unusual. Though whether for greatness or disaster, no one agrees. Morning comes, and the storm passes, leaving the land soaked streams swollen, fields muddy but glistening. Chickens wander back into the open, and cattle emerge from barns. You see the small Tesla household waking to its new rhythm. The family is not wealthy. Clergy families seldom are, but education and faith are prized. Books fill the shelves, sermons and scriptures share space with folk tales and the occasional technical manual. You notice how quickly the child's mother resumes her tasks. She weaves, spins, repairs tools, and tinkers with small contraptions. One, for example, is a simple mechanical egg beater she crafts from spare wood and metal. It isn't preserved in museums, but Nikola will later insist her ingenuity was the foundation of his. Imagine him as a boy, sitting cross-legged, watching her hands move quickly, absorbing the idea that the human mind can shape matter into anything it imagines. As years pass, the boy grows restless. He is not like other children who are content to chase each other through fields. His mind seems crowded, and his imagination leaps faster than his tongue can explain. He dreams in vivid colors and sometimes sees blinding flashes, visions that overwhelm him. At first, these terrify him. A word, an image, even a casual thought can trigger cascades of mental pictures so sharp you cannot tell if they are real or imagined. In modern terms, you might call them hallucinations or perhaps a rare neurological quirk. But in Tesla's household, they are signs of a boy too unusual for comfort. You wouldn't survive these visions without exhaustion. They shake his small frame, leaving him pale and trembling. But he also learns to control them, to turn them into engines of invention. He begins to construct devices in his mind, rotating them mentally, adjusting them, fixing flaws, all without drawing or touching materials. This skill, so odd in a child, becomes his defining gift. The ability to build and perfect machines entirely in imagination before they ever exist in reality. One day, while still young, he watches the village mill wheel turning with the river current. The motion hypnotizes him. He dreams of harnessing invisible forces, of capturing energy not with muscle or animal labor, but with clever machines. At night, he lies in bed listening to the tick of rain on the roof and imagines gears, levers, and spinning fields of force. The sound of water becomes not just noise, but a blueprint in his mind. By adolescence, you see him both brilliant and fragile. He is often ill, prone to fevers and strange collapses. At one point, he nearly dies from cholera, confined to bed for months. His father, desperate, promises him, if he survives, he will not be forced into the priesthood, but allowed to study engineering. This is a bargain that shapes Tesla's future. Every fevered night, the boy clings to the promise that survival means freedom, to pursue machines instead of sermons. Here lies another tension between fact and myth. Some sources insist Tesla's near death and his father's desperate promise were decisive. Others suggest it may have been embroidered later to dramatize the inevitability of his genius. Scholars still argue whether Tesla was truly destined by one miraculous survival, or whether it was simply one of many illnesses that marked a childhood in rural Europe. What's certain is that Tesla never forgot the moment, never forgot how close he came to fading before he began. You continue to walk the dirt paths of Smiljan, hearing the clatter of wagons, smelling the smoke of wood stoves. Life is hard here. Winters are sharp, summers humid, and survival demands constant work. And yet, you see a boy carrying books larger than his arms, muttering poetry under his breath, or staring at the clouds as though they conceal blueprints only he can read. The villagers shake their heads. Some say he is blessed, others whisper he is touched by madness. But always, the boy seems slightly apart, a creature of storm and light, too restless to remain contained in a village so small. The section lingers here, between the thunderstorm of his birth and the feverish visions of his youth. Already you sense that Tesla's story is not just one of wires and machines, but of omens, promises, and a mind both fragile and incandescent. You drift with him through the fields, hear the echoes of thunder in the distance, and see the first sparks of a life that will one day set whole cities glowing. You wake with the smell of wood smoke and damp earth. The storm of your birth is gone, but the echoes remain, stitched into the rhythm of your early days. You grow now in Smiljan, in a household where the church bell rules the hours, and the voice of your father carries farther than the thunder ever did. Nikola Tesla, your father, is tall, stern, a Serbian Orthodox priest with a face framed by a dark beard and eyes that seem always measuring the weight of your soul. He wears robes for ceremony, but even at home he seems draped in authority, reciting scripture, quoting poetry, drafting sermons. His voice is melodic, but it carries the certainty of a man who believes words are power. You, small and restless, sit in the pews during his services, half listening, half dreaming of wheels and watermills while he intones prayers about salvation. And yet, despite the formality, Milutin has a gentleness too. He is not wealthy, but he is learned. And in this corner of the empire, education is a rare wealth. He insists that his children, 5 in all, know not just the catechism, but also languages, literature, and mathematics. He himself is a polyglot, speaking Serbian, German, and even bits of Latin. He wants you to follow him into the clergy, to continue the family's legacy. To him, this is stability, honor, respect. For you, it feels like a cage. Here is a mainstream fact. Tesla's father truly was a Serbian Orthodox priest, and he did indeed envision a clerical path for his son. Several surviving letters and memoirs confirm that expectation. But in your young mind, sermons feel less alive than the spark of invisible forces humming behind the world. You feel trapped between obedience and imagination. Your mother, Georgina, or Juka, sees you differently. She has no formal education, but her memory is prodigious. She can recite entire poems and songs after hearing them once. More importantly, her hands are always busy, twisting, fixing, creating. She crafts simple devices, looms that work more smoothly, kitchen tools, and ingenious household contraptions. None of them are patented, none even recorded. But in your memory, they are the true machines of childhood. You watch her one evening fashion a simple mechanical egg beater from scraps. She laughs and says, "See, Nikola, you can always find a way if you look hard enough." You tuck that sentence into your heart, and years later, when journalists ask where your genius came from, you insist it was from her. The quirky detail here: Tesla's mother was known in her village for weaving intricate embroidery patterns, not from templates, but purely from memory. It may sound minor, but it suggests the kind of mind that holds structures in place without notes. A mirror of the way you later rotate entire machines in your head. And still, your father looms over you. He wants discipline, prayer, the certainty of tradition. He does not understand your obsession with machines. At meals, he presses you to read scripture. At night, he urges you to think of souls, not sparks. You nod politely, but secretly, you trace patterns in the candlelight, wondering how flames flicker with invisible drafts of air, how the smoke curls like a hidden current. When you are old enough to begin schooling formally, you find that you are quick, too quick for most teachers. In your village school, you master multiplication so rapidly that they struggle to find you challenges. You memorize entire books, word for word. You are not just good at lessons, you are extraordinary. Other children chase each other in the yard, You chase visions of mechanical birds, of endless wheels that never stop turning. Still, life in the Tesla household is not just learning. You are surrounded by siblings, your brothers Dane and two sisters, Angelina and Milka. You love Dane most of all, your elder brother, talented, graceful, admired. He seems to you like sunlight, everything you wish you could be. You trail after him, copy him, look up to him as if he were already a man. But destiny does not leave Dane untouched. One day, when you are still young, tragedy rips the household apart. Dane falls from a horse, the accident sudden and brutal. He is gone before anyone can understand what has happened. The family is stunned, hollowed. Your father weeps behind closed doors. Your mother carries a grief she cannot shake. For you, it is more than sorrow. You begin to see visions of Dane even after he is gone. Flashes so real you reach out to touch them. At night, you wake sweating, convinced he has returned, only to find shadows. Here is where scholarly uncertainty slips in. Some biographers argue that Tesla's lifelong visions, the hallucination-like experiences of images and inventions, began as trauma after Dane's death. Others insist they had begun even earlier, linked to an unusual neurological condition. What is certain is that Dane's death seared you, leaving you with both guilt and a sense that reality itself was fragile, able to tear at any moment. Your father grows stricter after this, more desperate to keep you tethered to discipline. He insists you follow his path to the priesthood. He believes, perhaps, that the church will give you stability, will save you from the same fate as your brother. You nod, obedient outwardly, but inside you feel a different pull. By adolescence, you are sneaking books about electricity, about natural philosophy, about the strange experiments being reported across Europe. You devour tales of Benjamin Franklin flying kites into storms, of Alessandro Volta stacking discs into batteries, of Michael Faraday spinning magnets into currents. You begin to dream of your own experiments, though you have no equipment. In the fields, you improvise. You fashion a crude water wheel. You play with beetles and imagine strapping wings to them. Once, in a burst of inspiration, you build a little windmill powered by June bugs. You tie them carefully, their wings buzzing to turn a wheel. To you, it feels like invention. To your neighbors, it is odd at best. You remember the laughter, the muttered comments. This boy is not right. This boy is too strange. You wouldn't survive this world of suspicion if not for your mother's quiet encouragement. She tells you to ignore them, to keep building, to keep imagining. Her voice is soft, her hands always busy, her eyes carrying the wisdom of one who sees beyond gossip. She becomes your true anchor, even as your father's voice grows heavier. Meanwhile, school progresses. In Gospic, then later Karlovac, you move through more advanced lessons. Teachers marvel at your memory, at your ability to solve complex mathematical problems in your head without writing them down. You begin to realize you can visualize entire equations, see the numbers arranged like architecture in your mind. It is exhilarating and isolating. Other boys struggle with chalk and slate. You drift into a world of pure thought, untouchable. You remember once being accused of cheating because you solved an advanced problem without a single note. The teacher refused to believe it until you explained step by step, flawlessly, without hesitation. That moment hardened you. The world would often doubt you, would laugh, would dismiss you. But your mind was real, and you would carry it forward regardless. By your late teens, the conflict with your father reaches a quiet boiling point. He still wants the priesthood for you. But you dream of the polytechnic schools, of universities where electricity is more sacred than scripture. The household grows tense. Meals are quiet. Your father sighs and shakes his head when he catches you scribbling equations. And yet, fate intervenes again, this time through illness. You fall gravely sick, perhaps from cholera, perhaps another infection, lying feverish for months. You are close to death. Your father, seeing you slip away, breaks. He promises you, if you survive, you may study engineering instead of theology. For the first time, his voice softens, not with authority, but with desperation. And you, burning with fever, cling to that promise like a lifeline. Somehow, you recover. Pale, weak, but alive. And with you survives the vow that your life will not be bound to sermons, but to machines. This is a turning point. Some historians insist that this promise was real, decisive, a moment of destiny. Others argue it is part of Tesla's own myth-making, a story told later to dramatize his fate. But whether embellished or not, the outcome is undeniable. You emerge from illness, determined to follow the path of invention. So you leave behind the world of the priest's household, the bells and candles, the sermons and psalms. You carry with you the echoes of a stern father, the ingenuity of a creative mother, and the grief of a brother's ghost. You are marked by storm, shadow, and survival. Ahead of you lies the open door of education, the vast world of cities and machines that hum with possibilities. As you stand at that threshold, the fields of Smiljan stretch behind you, quiet, rooted in tradition. Before you, unseen, lies Graz, Prague, Budapest, Paris, and New York. But for now, you are still a boy of the Balkans, the priest's son, carrying in your heart the storm's prophecy and your mother's spark. The years carry you from the safety of the priest's household into a strange borderland where your mind becomes both your greatest ally and your most relentless tormentor. You are no longer only the priest's son, no longer simply the child of storm and light. You are now a teenager in the raw, restless Balkans, caught between body and imagination, between the certainty of fever and the uncertainty of vision. It begins innocently enough. You notice, more often than others, how memories return not as faint impressions, but as blazing images. If someone mentions a word, a picture forms instantly in your mind. Not vague, not hazy, but sharp, as though painted across your inner vision. You see tables, chairs, fields, skies, whole mechanical arrangements triggered by a single phrase. Sometimes it is delightful. Other times, it is unbearable. At night, you try to sleep, but instead you are ambushed by visions. A candle flame becomes a sun, blinding, overwhelming. The sound in the rafters turns into images of birds, gears, feathers spun into patterns that loop endlessly. Your father, reading poetry aloud, cannot understand why you press your hands to your eyes as though trying to stop the flood. He believes you distracted, perhaps rebellious. Your mother, quieter, senses there is more. She strokes your head and whispers encouragement, though even she cannot enter the world you are trapped inside. Mainstream fact. Tesla would later describe these experiences in detail. Vivid mental images so intense, he often could not distinguish them from reality. Biographers today note that these were not ordinary daydreams, but involuntary hallucination-like episodes. The quirky detail? To distract himself, Tesla sometimes tried reciting whole books of poetry or entire novels from memory, line by line, word for word, until the vision subsided. Imagine lying in bed, a boy in a village with no electricity, whispering the entirety of Goethe's Faust just to calm the storm in your head. But the uncertainty remains. Scholars today still argue whether these visions were symptoms of a neurological condition, perhaps temporal lobe epilepsy, perhaps a rare form of synesthesia. or whether they were exaggerations told later to highlight Tesla's genius. He himself claimed they were real, overpowering, and ultimately the source of his unique gift. The ability to design and test machines entirely in his imagination before ever touching a tool. During this time, you also suffer real illnesses. Cholera has already left you frail, but fevers return in waves, leaving you bedridden. Nights stretch into delirium. You sweat through sheets, clutching at the walls, and in those fevered hours, the visions grow more violent. You see wheels turning endlessly, sparks leaping from your fingertips, shadows of machines that do not yet exist. Sometimes you feel you're floating above your body, watching yourself from the rafters. Other times, you are trapped in a nightmare of gears grinding louder and louder until they shake you awake. You wouldn't survive this cycle of visions and fevers without small escapes. One is water. You develop, almost comically, an obsession with flowing water. You feel an inexplicable compulsion to count the drops, to measure the rhythm, to calculate how much force a river carries. Neighbors think it odd when they see you crouched by a stream, staring at the current as though it were scripture. But for you, water is order, flowing, endless, soothing. It reminds you that invisible forces can be harnessed, controlled. Later, you will recall these moments when designing turbines and hydroelectric systems. Your teachers, meanwhile, see both brilliance and strangeness. In class, you solve problems faster than anyone, often without notes. You recite entire lessons back word for word. You can visualize geometry not as chalk on a board, but as rotating structures in your mind. One teacher, skeptical, accuses you of dishonesty. He hands you a problem so complex it is meant to stump you. You close your eyes, tilt your head slightly, and describe the answer step by step, without hesitation. The room falls silent. He no longer doubts you, but he also looks at you with unease, as though he is unsure whether you are a student or a conjurer. At home, your father continues pressing you toward theology. His belief is unshaken. You should be a priest. You know he sees your mind as dangerous, volatile, perhaps even sinful. He fears the visions will consume you unless tethered to faith. But you dream of other things. Wheels spinning forever. Invisible forces moving silently, a world remade by electricity. You feel like a bird in a cage, wings pressing against invisible wires. The cage grows tighter after Dane's death. You are haunted by your brother's memory, his brilliance extinguished too soon. Sometimes you see him in the corner of your room, his face sharp, his smile familiar, only to blink and find emptiness. You are not sure if this is grief or another of your visions. You never speak of it aloud. But you carry the ghost with you, a companion in the fevered nights. To cope, you develop peculiar habits. You grow obsessed with numbers divisible by 3. You avoid pearls, claiming they make you feel sick. You count your steps, measure your breaths, align objects symmetrically. These compulsions both comfort and control you, ways of ordering the chaos in your mind. They will later be recognized as symptoms of obsessive behavior. But for now, they are your rituals, your private defense against the storm. And then there is the incident with the insects. As a boy, you decide to build a small engine powered not by water or wind, but by June bugs. You collect them in jars, tie their wings carefully to a wheel, and watch in fascination as they buzz together, spinning the contraption. For a brief moment, you imagine you have created perpetual motion. Your neighbors laugh at you, perhaps cruelly, but you do not forget the thrill of invention. Even the smallest, strangest experiment carries a lesson. By the time you are old enough to leave for higher studies, your mind is both sharpened and scarred. You have survived cholera, survived visions, survived grief. You have memorized vast amounts of poetry, literature, mathematics, not because you wanted to impress anyone, but because your mind demanded it as a shield against the visions. You have learned that reality is not always stable, that your senses can betray you, and so you must rely on logic, imagination, and calculation to anchor yourself. Here, one more scholarly uncertainty lingers. Some argue that Tesla exaggerated these childhood struggles in later life to cast himself as a mystic genius. Others point to consistent anecdotes from multiple sources, including his own family, that confirm his unusual visions and compulsions. The truth likely lies somewhere between. Tesla did struggle with a mind that was different, but he also knew how to shape that difference into a myth. As you prepare to leave home for Graz, for Prague, for cities where electricity hums in workshops and lecture halls, you carry with you both the brilliance and the burden of your youth. You are not just a boy of the Balkans now. You are something stranger, a mind tuned to visions others cannot see, a soul tested by fevers and shadows. You walk once more by the river. The water flows steady, unbothered by storms or human grief. You crouch, dip your hands into the cool current, and whisper to yourself a promise. You will one day tame invisible forces as simple as this stream. You will make lightning your servant. You will turn visions into machines, and with that thought, you rise, the fever behind you, the vision still burning, and the path of invention ahead. You leave behind the quiet of Smiljan and Gospic, the sound of bells and rustling fields, and step into the wider empire. The road carries you to cities where voices mingle in German, Hungarian, Croatian, Serbian, Latin, where railways whistle, factories clatter, and the world seems to pulse with a new kind of energy. The air smells not of wood smoke and sheep's wool, but of coal, iron, and ink. It is here that you truly become a student of currents, drawn like a needle to the magnetic hum of a modernizing Europe. Your first formal step is Graz, at the Austrian Polytechnic. The journey alone feels monumental. From a small priest's household into one of the empire's centers of technical learning. The classrooms are larger, the professors sterner, the textbooks thicker. But you thrive. Mathematics bends easily under your gaze. Physics becomes not abstraction, but a kind of poetry. You memorize not only equations, but entire lectures, repeating them word for word. Classmates marvel, professors take note. Mainstream fact. Nikola Tesla did indeed attend the Polytechnic School in Graz, beginning in 1875. And he distinguished himself early with extraordinary memory and mathematical ability. Records describe him as a brilliant but eccentric student, capable of extraordinary feats of recall. One vivid moment occurs when a professor demonstrates a new Gram dynamo, a heavy, humming device with copper coils and iron parts. Your classmates watch politely, scribbling notes. But you lean forward, eyes narrowing. You see not just the machine before you, but its possibilities. You imagine it spinning not for a workshop, but for a world. While others see a lecture, you see a prophecy. And here arrives the quirky detail. In one class, when asked to solve a difficult problem, you not only solved it immediately, but recited the professor's own notes back to him verbatim, down to pauses and gestures, as though replaying a recording. The professor, astonished, later remarked that you had a photographic memory. But to you, it is simply the way your mind works. Images, words, even movements etched instantly onto the theater of your imagination. Still, your brilliance has shadows. You do not merely study, you overstudy. You push your body past its limits, reading until dawn, surviving on little food, less sleep, and bursts of coffee and willpower. You skip meals, your frame growing thinner. At times, you seem to live only in your head, forgetting the body that carries it. Your classmates socialize, drink, laugh, chase distractions. You do not. You haunt the library, filling notebooks with calculations, sketching designs for motors that do not yet exist. Historians remain uncertain about one part of this story. The official records show Tesla excelled in his early years, but later accounts hint he may never have formally graduated. Some say he dropped out after losing his scholarship, others that he simply left before completing exams. The university records are incomplete, and Tesla himself was vague about the details. What is certain is that Graz left its mark, both the exhilaration of study and the exhaustion of overwork. You walk the streets of Graz, hearing the clop of horses, smelling bakery bread mixed with coal smoke. You see telegraph wires strung like spider webs above streets, carrying invisible messages at lightning speed. The world seems to be woven tighter and tighter by currents and signals. You know instinctively, this is where your destiny lies, not in sermons or scripture, but in these humming, invisible networks. And yet, temptation waits in every city. You gamble at times, throwing coins on tables, watching wheels spin, hearts race. It is not the money you crave, but the pattern, the chance to control odds with sheer will. But luck rarely listens. You lose, sometimes badly. You hide the shame, the hunger in your stomach when funds disappear. Later in life, you will confess this weakness, admitting that you nearly ruined yourself with cards and dice. But in the moment, it is simply another storm to survive. One night, fevered with both visions and exhaustion, you stumble into a small room where gas lamps hiss and the air smells faintly of oil. You are alone, but in your mind, the walls are filled with invisible machines. You close your eyes and see a wheel turning, not by direct current, not by friction, but by a rotating magnetic field. The image flashes so clearly, it feels like revelation. You see coils, arranged just so, fields spinning in harmony, motors that could run smoothly without sparks or brushes. The vision burns itself into your mind, but you are too weak, too young, too scattered to make it real. For now, it is a ghost of invention, waiting to emerge later. Your time in Graz falters as health fails, finances strain, and habits weigh heavy. You drift, first to Maribor, then to Prague. In Prague, you attempt more studies, this time in philosophy and advanced sciences. But you arrive late, missing enrollment deadlines, struggling with language barriers. You audit lectures when you can, borrowing notes, reading obsessively. But your life feels increasingly unstable, pulled between genius and collapse. And yet, Prague gives you something else. The reminder that imagination can be nourished not only by machines, but by words. You wander into cafes where poets argue, where philosophy drifts like smoke from the tips of cigars. You memorize passages, quote Schopenhauer, read Goethe until the words sing in your blood. You are not only an engineer, you are a dreamer, a poet of science, blending the rigor of calculation with the music of language. Your father, meanwhile, worries from afar. Letters pass between you, sometimes stern, sometimes tender. He urges you to be practical, to take steady work, to abandon the dangerous pursuit of impossible dreams. But you resist. And then, in 1879, another blow falls. Your father dies suddenly of illness. You are devastated. Whatever tension remained between you dissolves in grief. You return home briefly, a thin, pale figure who looks more like a ghost than a son. You wander the fields of Smiljan again, feeling the weight of loss, the silence of sermons now gone forever. Here is the uncertainty again. Some records suggest that Tesla's father's death left him destitute, forcing him to abandon further study and fend for himself. Others claim he received some modest support. What cannot be denied is the emotional impact. Tesla lost both an anchor and an adversary. And with that loss came both grief and freedom. In these years, you also begin work in practical engineering. In Budapest and later Paris, you find jobs with telegraph companies, electrical firms, any place that will pay for your uncanny skill with machines. You design, repair, improvise. You are no longer just a student. You are becoming an inventor in practice. But always, behind the daily tasks, the vision of the rotating magnetic field haunts you. It whispers that you hold a secret no one else yet sees. You wouldn't survive these years without resilience. You are often broke, often hungry, sometimes ill. You move constantly, from Graz to Maribor to Prague, then onward. But you carry a fire inside you, a restless compulsion to prove your vision. Even when dismissed, even when ignored, you know that the world is waiting for what you will build. And so you walk again through a city street, boots thin, coat worn, eyes alive with thoughts of invisible forces. You hear the clatter of carriages, the murmur of voices. But beneath it all, you imagine currents humming, coils turning, fields rotating. You are, and will always be, a student of currents, studying not only what is taught in classrooms, but what appears in sudden flashes across your mind, born of storm, fever, and unrelenting imagination. You are thin, restless, and wandering, drifting through Europe with little money in your pocket, but whole machines burning in your mind. After leaving Graz, after stumbling in Prague, after returning home to bury your father, you find yourself in Budapest in the early 1880s. A city humming with the cautious optimism of an empire trying to modernize. Budapest is no sleepy village. The streets are alive with trams pulled by horses, coffee houses filled with smoke and conversation, bridges rising across the Danube, and, in certain workshops, the faint whir of experimental electrical devices. For you, arriving half broken and half inspired, it is both exile and opportunity. You take a position with the Central Telegraph Office, repairing and improving equipment. It is not glamorous, but it keeps you fed. Mainstream fact. Tesla did indeed work in Budapest in 1881 at the Central Telegraph Office, later moving to the newly organized Budapest Telephone Exchange. He even served briefly as chief electrician there, though the role was not as prestigious as it might sound. It was still a company in its infancy. But Budapest is also where your visions intensify into revelation. You wander the parks often, pacing endlessly, murmuring to yourself, quoting poetry. Goethe's Faust is a favorite. You recite entire passages aloud, startling passers-by. Your colleagues think you eccentric, perhaps unstable, but they also cannot deny your skill with machines. You work tirelessly, redesigning telephone equipment, improving transmitters, even proposing inventions that are far beyond what your employers can understand. And then, one afternoon, it happens. You are walking with a friend, Anton Szigeti, through the city park. The air is crisp, the trees swaying lightly, and you are reciting lines from Goethe, as you often do, to calm the restless storm of your thoughts. Suddenly, in a flash, the answer arrives. Not a vague idea, not a blurred impression, but a fully formed vision. The rotating magnetic field. You see it as clearly as if it were built before you. Coils arranged at right angles, alternating currents flowing in sequence. Fields spinning smoothly around a central axis. A motor that requires no brushes, no sparks, no commutators. Just the elegant dance of alternating current doing its work. You stop in your tracks, eyes wide, hands gesturing wildly. You grab a stick and scratch diagrams into the dirt, showing Anton the arrangement. He looks puzzled, perhaps amused. But but you are electrified. For you, this is not theory. It is revelation. You know, instantly, that this is the principle that will define your life. Here is the quirky detail. Some versions of the story claim you were so overwhelmed by the vision that you clutched Anton's arm and declared, "See my motor here in the air. Watch me reverse it." Whether or not he truly saw anything but dirt sketches, you insisted the invisible machine was as real as the ground beneath your feet. Historians debate how much of this memory is exact. Did it truly happen in that moment, in that park? Or was the story polished later into a myth of sudden genius? Some argue you had been working toward the concept for months, even years. Others suggest it was indeed a singular lightning strike of insight. The uncertainty remains. But in your memory, in your telling, it was the park, the poetry, and the sudden burst of clarity that changed everything. You wouldn't survive this revelation without obsession. For weeks after, you pace constantly, refining the vision in your mind. You see the coils spinning in perfect synchronization, the magnetic fields sweeping smoothly. You test it mentally, again and again, imagining flaws, correcting them, until you are certain it works. You do not need paper. You do not need a lab. You already see it operating perfectly in your inner theater. Meanwhile, your work at the telephone exchange continues. You design improvements to the equipment, some of which are quietly adopted, though without your name attached. It frustrates you, but you remind yourself that your true invention lies waiting, ready to be built when the right opportunity arrives. Budapest itself feels like a city caught between worlds. Horse-drawn carriages rattle across cobblestones, but telegraph poles line the streets. Gas lamps flicker at night, but rumors of electric lights already circulate. You wander along the Danube at dusk, watching the reflections of lamps on the water, imagining the river itself carrying invisible currents to light the city. To others, the dream of a world powered by alternating current seems fanciful. To you, it is inevitable, but life is not easy. You still struggle with your health, migraines, fainting spells, exhaustion from overwork. You are often broke, skipping meals, walking long distances instead of paying fares. The vision sustains you, but the body falters. You feel yourself teetering on the edge, a man possessed by an idea too large for the world around him. One evening, you sit in a small apartment, the table bare except for a candle. You close your eyes and run the motor in your mind, watching the field spin, the shaft turn. You can hear it, feel the vibration, smell the faint heat of the coils. It is so real you almost believe you can touch it. And yet, it remains invisible, locked in imagination. The frustration gnaws at you. You have the answer, but no resources to build it. And here lies another uncertainty. Some accounts suggest you attempted to sketch the design formally in Budapest, but lacked the money or support to pursue it. Others argue you never put it on paper until later, when you found allies in Paris and America. What is clear is that the vision never left you. It burned like a hidden flame, waiting for the right wind. Budapest also leaves you with lessons in resilience. You learn that genius alone is not enough. You need allies, patrons, resources. You cannot conjure machines from air alone, no matter how vivid your imagination. You must step into the larger world, find those who will believe in you, and turn visions into reality. By 1882, opportunity calls. A recommendation, a connection, perhaps sheer chance brings you to Paris, where the Continental Edison Company is expanding rapidly. The city of light, with its boulevards and electric ambitions, beckons. Budapest has given you revelation. But Paris will give you the chance to test it against reality, and so you leave the Danube behind. You pack what little you have, your mind still humming with invisible fields, your heart still racing with visions of coils and motors. You board the train, hearing the rhythmic clatter of wheels on rails, and imagine them spinning not by steam, but by alternating current, by the very principle you now carry like a secret treasure. As the train rolls toward Paris, you glance back once at the city where it all began. The park, the poetry, the dirt sketches, the sudden flash of clarity. All of it remains behind, yet also travels with you, embedded in your mind forever. You know you are leaving as one man and arriving as another. The storm-born child, the priest's son, the fevered visionary, now becomes something new. The inventor armed with revelation. You arrive in Paris with little more than a letter of recommendation, a thin coat, and the motor of your mind still spinning silently, unseen by anyone else. The year is 1882, and the city feels like a different universe from the villages of your youth. Paris is alive with clatter and light, gas lamps glowing along the boulevards, carriages weaving through crowded streets, and cafes that stay open late into the night with smoke rising in lazy curls above tables of poets, engineers, and dreamers. The Seine glimmers with reflections, and the new world of industry hums around you. You take a position with the Continental Edison Company, a branch of Thomas Edison's vast electrical empire that is spreading across Europe. The office is busy, filled with engineers who work long hours repairing dynamos, designing systems for lighting, and wiring buildings for the new wonder, electricity. It is practical work, demanding and often tedious. But for you, it feels like standing at the edge of something enormous. Mainstream fact. Tesla began working for the Continental Edison Company in Paris in 1882, where he was tasked with installing and repairing Edison's direct current dynamos. He quickly impressed his supervisors with his skill and ingenuity. You wouldn't survive those first months without your unusual abilities. While others need drawings, you can picture machines in your mind, see their flaws instantly, and propose improvements. You work tirelessly, often through the night, sketching modifications that make the dynamos run more efficiently. Soon, your supervisors notice. They send you across France to repair equipment at factories, to troubleshoot problems too difficult for ordinary engineers. You travel by train, watching the countryside blur past, always carrying your invisible motor in your mind, like a secret waiting to be revealed. One quirky detail emerges from this period. You are said to have been called upon to repair a malfunctioning Edison machine in Strasbourg. When you arrived, the dynamo was sputtering, inefficient, and unstable. Instead of tinkering blindly, you mentally rebuilt the entire machine in your head, spotted the flaw, and corrected it. Afterward, you presented a design improvement so effective that it astonished your colleagues. Some accounts even claim you rebuilt the device overnight, working without rest until it hummed like new. Whether the tale has grown in retelling or not, it captures the truth. You were no ordinary engineer, and yet there is scholarly uncertainty about how far your role extended. Some records portray you as a low-level employee, a clever technician among many. Others, drawing from your own later accounts, suggest you were already standing out as a visionary. Did you truly impress the directors enough to be recommended for work in America? Or did you embellish your story later? Historians still argue. What is certain is that Paris gave you both experience and reputation, and it brought you closer to the world of Edison. Paris itself is intoxicating. You walk the boulevards at night, where horse hooves clatter and accordion music drifts through the air. You pause at bridges, watching the Seine ripple, imagining electricity flowing invisibly beneath the city like a second river. You wander into libraries, where you read about Faraday's experiments, Maxwell's equations, the latest discoveries in electromagnetism. Your mind spins, weaving these ideas into your own visions. At the same time, life in Paris exposes you to glamour and temptation. You see men dressed in fine suits, women in elaborate gowns, the wealthy dining in glittering halls. You feel both drawn and repelled. You yourself remain austere, avoiding meat, preferring simple meals, often skipping dinner altogether when absorbed in work. Your colleagues joke about your strange habits, your avoidance of pearls, your obsession with symmetry. But you ignore them. For you, the true feast is the invisible banquet of ideas. Still, you are not immune to loneliness. You walk alone often, pacing the parks, murmuring poetry under your breath. You think of your mother. Far away, her hands still busy with tools in a quiet Balkan kitchen. You think of your father, gone now, and wonder if he would understand the path you have chosen. You think of Dane, your lost brother, and imagine him walking beside you, nodding silently at the lamps strung across the boulevards. Your work continues. You design improvements, build prototypes, impress supervisors. You imagine alternating current systems, though you know better than to propose them openly in an Edison company that is devoted fiercely to direct current. Still, the motor of your mind hums on. You refine it, polish it, test it endlessly in imagination. You know it is superior, but you also know you must bide your time. Here, too, the shadows of exhaustion creep back. You work late, sometimes collapsing from fatigue. You develop strange phobias, avoid certain textures, compulsively wash your hands. Your mind is brilliant, but your nerves are fraying. At times, you fear you may break before your invention ever sees the light. And yet, you press on. In 1883, in Strasbourg, you finally build a physical version of your motor. Using spare parts and working secretly, you assemble a prototype of the alternating current induction motor that has haunted your imagination since Budapest. You test it, and it works. The shaft spins smoothly, silently, driven not by commutators or sparks, but by the elegant rotation of magnetic fields. It is the moment you have long awaited, the vision made flesh. You stand before it, thin and pale, but glowing with triumph. You have proven your idea, at least to yourself. The future, you realize, is not direct current. It is alternating current, and you hold its key. But recognition does not come. Your employers are uninterested, locked into Edison's world of direct current. You try to explain, but they dismiss you. Alternating current is impractical, they insist. Dangerous, unprofitable. You feel the sting of being ignored. The frustration of holding a truth no one else will acknowledge. Historians debate how much of this story is exact. Did you truly build the prototype in Strasbourg? Or did you reconstruct the memory later? The evidence is scattered, but the essence is real. By the time you left Europe, the principle of the induction motor was already alive in your mind, and perhaps in metal. Your time in Paris comes to an end when an opportunity arises, one that will take you farther than you ever imagined. Charles Batchelor, a close associate of Edison, notices your skill and recommends you to the master himself. A letter is prepared, addressed to Edison in America. It describes you as a man of talent, someone worth employing. For you, this is a key to a new world, and so you prepare to leave Paris, the city of boulevards and cafes, the place where you built your first motor in secret. You pack your few belongings once more, tuck the letter of recommendation safely into your coat, and board a ship bound for New York. The voyage is long, the ocean vast, the future uncertain. But you stand at the railing, watching waves crash against the hull, and whisper to yourself that soon, the world will know the power of alternating current. Behind you lies Paris, with its gas lamps and smoke, its glitter and dismissal. Ahead lies America, Edison, and a battle that will define not only your life, but the very shape of modern civilization. You leave behind the boulevards of Paris, the smoke-hazed cafes, the indifferent colleagues who dismissed your vision of alternating current. You stand on the deck of a steamship bound west, a folded letter of recommendation tucked safely in your pocket. That letter bears the name of Charles Batchelor, Edison's trusted lieutenant, and it says plainly, "I know two great men, and you are one of them. The other is this young man." The Atlantic spreads before you, vast and restless, an endless heave of gray and green. The air smells of salt and coal smoke, for the ship is driven not by sails but by furnaces below deck, iron throats swallowing mountains of coal to push propellers through water. You feel the vibration in the soles of your boots, a rhythm that reminds you of the invisible motors still turning in your mind. Mainstream fact: Tesla arrived in New York in June of 1884, carrying little more than 4 cents, some of his own poems, a few calculations, and Batchelor's letter of introduction to Edison. The voyage itself is no gentle crossing. The ship lurches in storms, waves crashing against the hull, passengers groaning in seasick misery. You cling to the railing, staring into the churning foam, half nauseated and half hypnotized by the endless movement. Nights are worse. Howling winds rattle the windows, lamps swing violently, and the smell of damp wool and sweat clogs the cabins. You sleep little, lying awake, mind burning with alternating current diagrams. And here comes a quirky detail. During the voyage, you lose your luggage in a mishap. Robbed or misplaced, no one is certain. When you finally step onto American soil, you have practically nothing but the clothes on your back and Batchelor's letter. To begin a life of invention in the New World, you arrive nearly penniless, a man with more machines in his imagination than coins in his pocket. Scholarly uncertainty lingers around the exact condition of your arrival. Some accounts say you had 4 cents, others a few gold coins. Still others insist you had sketches of your motor tucked into your coat. The truth may never be fully known, but the image of you stepping ashore nearly destitute has become part of your legend. You wouldn't survive without resilience. New York in 1884 is a roaring, sprawling metropolis. Nothing like the villages of Smiljan or even the elegance of Paris. The skyline is already pierced by early skyscrapers, steel skeletons wrapped in stone, rising against the smoky sky. Ferries crisscross the rivers, trolleys clang along crowded avenues, and everywhere you hear the noise of a city that never sleeps. Horses neigh, steam whistles shriek, the murmur of thousands of voices fills the air. You step into this chaos, carrying hope and exhaustion. You wander the streets at first, marveling at the endless energy of the city. At night, gas lamps and the first electric lights cast a glow across Broadway, reflecting in shop windows. Crowds press against you, vendors shout, carriages rattle. To you, it feels like standing inside a dynamo, the entire city humming with potential. Soon, with Batchelor's letter in hand, you are ushered into Edison's workshop. Here, the clatter of tools, the hiss of steam, the hum of dynamos fills the air. The workshop is alive with invention. Tables piled with wires, magnets, lamps, and sketches. Assistants moving quickly from one experiment to another. And at the center of it all, Thomas Edison himself, the Wizard of Menlo Park, the man already celebrated as the greatest inventor of the age. Meeting him is a collision of worlds. Edison is short, stocky, with piercing eyes and a brusque manner. He speaks quickly with the confidence of someone used to command. He is practical, pragmatic, driven by results. You, tall, thin, soft-spoken, are his opposite in nearly every way. You imagine machines whole in your mind before building them. Edison believes in trying hundreds of variations until one works. He believes in sweat and persistence. You in vision and elegance. Yet here you are, face to face, a storm-born son of the Balkans standing before the American wizard. Mainstream fact: Tesla worked briefly for Edison's company in New York in 1884, assigned to improving and repairing Edison's direct current dynamos. He impressed Edison with his skill, but also clashed with him over methods and vision. Edison looks at bachelor's letter, then at you. He hires you on the spot, though perhaps with skepticism. You are given tasks no ordinary employee could solve. Repairing complex generators, redesigning machines to run more efficiently. You work tirelessly, sometimes through the night, your thin frame hunched over coils and gears. Your colleagues quickly realize you are no ordinary engineer. You fix in hours what others struggle with for days. One quirky story from this time says that Edison promised you a bonus, $50,000, if you could significantly improve his dynamos. You took the challenge seriously, redesigning them so efficiently they astonished even Edison. When you asked for the promised reward, Edison laughed and said, "Tesla, you don't understand our American humor. Derbelt, whether this tale is exact or embellished, it reveals the gulf between you." Edison, the businessman, practical and shrewd. And you, the visionary who took words literally. Historians remain divided on this anecdote. Some argue it was true, others suggest it was Tesla's later bitterness speaking. What is certain is that the incident soured your relationship. You realized quickly that Edison's world would never embrace your alternating current dream. Still, those first months in New York are unforgettable. You walk the streets after long nights in the workshop, your hands raw, your eyes heavy. You watch immigrants from every corner of the world pour through Ellis Island, carrying trunks and hopes. You see children selling papers, men hauling carts, women rushing with baskets of laundry. The city is an engine, fueled by sweat and ambition. And you too are part of it now, though your engine hums differently. From visions rather than persistence. You rent small rooms, eat simple meals, often going hungry when pay is late. You wander into Central Park, staring at the lamps, imagining them glowing not from Edison's struggling direct current, but from your elegant alternating current, pulsing invisibly through wires, lighting whole cities with ease. You mutter to yourself, hands gesturing in the air, drawing coils no one else can see. Passers-by shake their heads, but you are already building the future in silence. In quieter moments, you write letters to your mother back home, though her replies travel slowly. You describe the city, the work, the possibilities. You do not tell her how lonely you are, how exhausted, how often you wonder if you will fail. You keep those doubts hidden, locked inside like another motor running endlessly. And so the Atlantic fades behind you, replaced by the roar of New York. You are no longer a drifting apprentice of Paris, but a man standing on the threshold of destiny. You have met Edison, clashed with him, and felt the sting of disappointment. But you also know something Edison cannot see, that alternating current is the future, and you are the one to unleash it. The storm that marked your birth now follows you across the ocean, crackling invisibly in your imagination. America may not know it yet, but the battle of currents is about to begin. And you, Nikola Tesla, will stand at its heart. New York hums like a restless machine. You walk its avenues and feel the pulse of ambition, the clang of steel, the hiss of steam. Every street is an artery of invention, yet underneath it all runs a quieter battle. A struggle not of armies, but of ideas, of wires, of unseen currents shaping the future. You, Nikola Tesla, step directly into the storm of what history will call the War of Currents. At first, you remain within Edison's orbit. You repair dynamos, redesign machinery, offer solutions that others cannot imagine. Edison is impressed, but the bond frays quickly. He believes in direct current, in low-voltage systems that must be distributed locally. Every neighborhood served by its own generating station. You believe in alternating current, in the beauty of sending electricity miles across wires, stepping voltage up and down with transformers. Mainstream fact. The late 1880s saw a fierce rivalry between Edison's direct current, DC systems, and the emerging alternating current, AC systems, promoted by Tesla and later backed by George Westinghouse. It was one of the defining technological battles of the 19th century. The first fissures appear when you propose your AC motor to Edison. He waves it off. That's impractical, he insists. Too dangerous. Stick with what works. He is a man of persistence, of trial and error, who has wired whole districts with DC. You are a man of vision, who sees fields rotating invisibly in the air. The two of you could not be further apart. And then comes the matter of money. You toil over Edison's dynamos, redesigning them for efficiency. You hear a promise of $50,000 for your efforts, a fortune beyond imagining. You succeed, or so you believe. But when you ask for your reward, Edison laughs. Tesla, you don't understand our American humor. This story becomes one of the most repeated tales of your life. Did he truly promise you the money? Or was it a misunderstanding colored by your literal interpretation and his offhand remark? Historians remain divided. Some suggest you misremembered, others that Edison never intended to pay. But what is certain is the sting of betrayal you felt. A moment that pushed you to leave his company forever. You wouldn't survive in New York without humility. Stripped of steady work, you fall into lean times. You dig ditches for a while, earning barely enough to eat. You, a man who carries entire machines in your mind, reduced to shoveling earth in the summer heat, sweat dripping down your thin frame. But even then, your imagination doesn't quiet. As you labor, you sketch ideas in the dirt, whisper calculations under your breath, turning manual work into a secret workshop of thought. Quirky detail. During these ditch-digging days, you are said to have designed an improved arc lamp system for a small company. Though it provided temporary employment, you never profited much from it. A pattern that would haunt you. Others often made more from your ideas than you did yourself. But fortune shifts. In 1887, with the help of investors like Alfred S. Brown and Charles Peck, you establish your own Tesla Electric Company. You finally have a laboratory of your own, a place filled with coils, wires, and the crackle of sparks. Here, you build the alternating current induction motor that has lived in your mind since Budapest. At last, it spins in reality. Smooth, efficient, elegant, word spreads. Journalists begin to call you the Wizard of Electricity, marveling at your demonstrations. You stand before audiences, tall and gaunt, holding glass tubes that glow wirelessly, currents leaping invisibly through the air. You make sparks crackle across your body, light bulbs without wires, coils that roar with blue fire. Crowds gasp, torn between awe and fear. But Edison does not sit idle. He launches a campaign against alternating current, branding it deadly, dangerous, unsuitable for homes. He calls it a menace, spreading stories of electrocutions. He stages public demonstrations, shocking animals, dogs, calves, even horses, with alternating current to prove its hazards. The most infamous outcome: the first use of the electric chair in 1890, powered by AC, promoted as the Edison current. Mainstream fact: Edison's public demonstrations against AC were real, though often exaggerated for effect. The so-called War of Currents was as much about business and patents as about safety. Scholarly uncertainty lingers here, too. Did Edison himself orchestrate every demonstration? Or did his associates carry out much of the smear campaign on his behalf? The record is mixed, but the result is clear. Public fear of alternating current grew, even as its advantages remained undeniable. Through it all, you remain calm, almost serene. You believe in AC not as a gamble, but as inevitability. You refine your systems, demonstrate them tirelessly, persuade investors and engineers. You argue not with slander, but with science, showing again and again how AC can transmit power efficiently over long distances. And then comes the alliance that changes everything. George Westinghouse, the industrialist who has already made fortunes in railroads and air brakes, sees the potential in your motor. He offers to license your patents, to bring your AC system to life on a scale you cannot achieve alone. When the deal is struck, it feels like vindication. No longer the penniless ditch digger, no longer the dismissed dreamer. You are now partnered with one of America's great industrial powers. Westinghouse pays you handsomely, and more importantly, he believes in your vision. Together, you will bring alternating current to the world. Quirky side note: you initially received both cash and royalties from Westinghouse, a deal that could have made you one of the wealthiest men alive. But years later, in a moment of generosity, or perhaps naivete, you would tear up the contract to save Westinghouse's company from financial ruin. That act cost you millions, but cemented your legend as a man who valued ideas over money. For now, though, you revel in triumph. The newspapers buzz with talk of the War of Currents, casting you as Edison's rival, the mysterious wizard battling the practical American. You walk the streets of New York, and though many still do not know your name, those who do speak it with awe. At night, you return to your lab. Sparks leaping, machines humming. You stand among coils taller than yourself. Electricity dancing across the air like lightning tamed. You feel the storm of your birth echoing in every experiment. You are no longer just a student of currents. You are their master, shaping them into the future. The War of Currents is not over. Edison's allies continue their smear campaign. Accidents occur, fear lingers, but the tide is turning. With Westinghouse at your side, with your induction motor proven, with your wireless lamps dazzling audiences, you sense victory ahead. The boy born in a storm, the priest's son, the fevered visionary, the penniless immigrant. You now stand at the center of a technological war that will decide how the entire world is powered. And as you look out over the city, lamps glowing, factories humming, you whisper to yourself that the light of alternating current will outshine the darkness of doubt. The battle lines of the War of Currents are drawn, and for the first time you, Nikola Tesla, no longer stand alone. The lonely ditch digger, the restless apprentice, the misunderstood visionary, now finds an ally powerful enough to bring alternating current out of dreams and into the veins of the world. His name is George Westinghouse. Westinghouse is not a poet, not a mystic, not a man who recites Goethe while walking through parks. He is an industrialist, practical and shrewd, with hands that know the weight of steel and eyes that see balance sheets more clearly than blue sparks. He has already built an empire on the invention of the air brake, saving lives on railroads and making fortunes along the way. When he looks at your patents, the induction motor, the transformers, the system for long-distance AC transmission, he does not laugh, he does not dismiss, he does not sneer. He sees opportunity, mainstream fact. In 1888, Westinghouse purchased Tesla's AC patents for motors and power systems, offering cash, stock, and royalties. This agreement laid the foundation for the commercial spread of alternating current in America and beyond. The meeting between you is almost mythic in retelling. Some say Westinghouse immediately recognized your brilliance. Some say he needed convincing. Others that intermediaries carried your patents first. The details blur, as they often do when business and legend intertwine. But the result is clear. You and Westinghouse form a partnership that will electrify the world. Imagine the moment. You stand in a Pittsburgh office, thin and pale. Your eyes bright, your voice soft but urgent. You sketch coils in the air, describe fields rotating invisibly, explain how power can leap across miles without losing strength. Westinghouse nods, asks sharp questions, tests your resolve. He is a man of industry. You are a man of vision. Where Edison scowled and dismissed, Westinghouse listens. He believes. The deal is struck. You receive $60,000 in cash and stock, along with a royalty of $2.50 per horsepower of AC motors sold. For a man who once shoveled ditches for food, this is wealth beyond imagining. You now have resources, backing, and legitimacy. Quirky detail. For all your brilliance, you have little interest in money. When you receive your first substantial check, you carry it like a curiosity, showing it to friends not with greed, but with amusement, as though wealth is an experiment you never expected to run. You remain ascetic in your habits, dining modestly, living simply, avoiding excess. The true joy is not in riches, but in watching your motor spin, your current leap, your vision breathe. With Westinghouse's support, the war of currents escalates. Edison continues his campaign of fear, staging electrocutions, warning the public of the deadly alternating current. But Westinghouse pushes forward, building AC systems in towns and cities, demonstrating their efficiency, their economy, their inevitability. You travel often now, to Pittsburgh, to laboratories, to exhibitions. You refine your machines, speak before engineers, demonstrate your wireless lamps. Audiences gape as you hold glass tubes that glow without wires. Sparks dancing from your fingers, coils roaring like captured thunder. Newspapers call you the Wizard of the West or the Master of Lightning. Children gape at your demonstrations, while investors quietly calculate profits. But your alliance with Westinghouse is not just about machines. It is also about trust. He treats you with respect, valuing your genius, even when your ideas seem too fantastic. And you, in turn, admire his pragmatism, his ability to turn visions into systems, patents into factories, sparks into power grids. For a time, it feels like the perfect balance. The dreamer and the industrialist, united by current. Mainstream fact. The partnership faced immense financial strain. The promise of royalties could have made you one of the wealthiest inventors alive. But Westinghouse's company struggled under fierce competition and legal battles. In 1897, to ease his burden, you voluntarily tore up the royalty contract, forfeiting millions. This act is remembered as both noble and tragic, proof of your indifference to money and perhaps of your vulnerability to exploitation. Scholarly uncertainty hovers here. Did you truly tear up the contract out of pure generosity? Or were you pressured, subtly or otherwise, by Westinghouse's financial crisis? Some biographers see you as a martyr of business, others as a willing partner saving a friend. What is certain is that the decision changed your life, stripping you of fortunes that could have secured your later years. But in the early 1890s, that loss is still far away. for now, the alliance bears fruit. The greatest test looms. The 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, a fair designed to dazzle the world with modern achievement. Edison pushes for DC, but Westinghouse secures the contract using your AC systems. The fairgrounds glow with more than 100,000 incandescent bulbs, powered by alternating current. Crowds gasp as night turns to day, the city bathed in light. Quirky anecdote. Some visitors were so unaccustomed to electric light on that scale that they stood transfixed, staring upward, convinced it was a kind of sorcery. Children squealed, couples whispered, old men shook their heads. For many, it was the first time they had ever seen electricity beyond a handful of lamps. And you, tall and slender, stood quietly in the background, satisfied that the storm of your mind had finally lit the world. That victory leads to the next, Niagara Falls. For centuries, the thundering water had been admired, painted, dreamed of as a source of power. Now, with Westinghouse and your AC system, it becomes reality. Giant turbines harness the falls, transmitting power miles away to Buffalo. When the first current flows in 1896, the achievement is hailed as a wonder of the age. You stand on the banks, the mist on your face, listening to the roar of the water and the hum of invisible current. It is the culmination of the vision you whispered to yourself as a boy by Balkan streams. Mainstream fact. Tesla's AC system was indeed used at Niagara, making it one of the first large-scale hydroelectric power plants in the world. It marked the triumph of alternating current and cemented your legacy. And yet, even in triumph, shadows gather. Business rivals sue, patents are contested, financial pressures mount. You, disinterested in money, focus on new ideas. Wireless transmission, global communication, power sent through the air. Westinghouse, burdened by debts and lawsuits, pleads for relief. That is when you make your fateful decision to release your royalties. You save your friend, but you doom your own fortune. Historians still debate the gesture. Was it naivete, nobility, or necessity? Perhaps all three. But in that act, you reveal yourself. A man who cares more for the dream of electricity spreading across the world than for wealth in his pocket. You wouldn't survive long in the harsh world of industry with such priorities. But for a moment, in the 1890s, it seems as though you have won. The boy born in a storm, who saw visions in fever, who built motors in imagination, has conquered not only Edison, but the very way the world is powered. Cities glow, factories hum, trams glide along tracks, all because of alternating current, all because of you and Westinghouse. At night, you walk again through New York. The lamps blaze overhead, streetcars spark along rails, buildings glow. You see your vision made flesh in every corner of the city. And yet, you also feel the quiet weight of the future pressing on you. For though AC is triumphant, your mind already races ahead. Whispering of wireless power, towers taller than cathedrals, energy leaping invisibly across oceans. The alliance with Westinghouse has given you victory, but it has also set the stage for your next battles. Ones not against Edison or rivals, but against money, faith, and time itself. And as you drift into sleep tonight, the lights of the city still bright against the dark sky, you hear both the roar of Niagara and the soft echo of your mother's words. You will be a child of light, Python. The war of currents has been fought, and alternating current now stretches its invisible fingers across cities and rivers. Lamps glow in Chicago, turbines roar at Niagara, factories hum in Buffalo. And the dream you once sketched into dirt in a Budapest park has been etched permanently into the bones of the modern world. And yet, Nikola Tesla. Your story does not end with victory. If anything, it only begins to shimmer more strangely. Because now the world does not just call you an engineer, it calls you a wizard. You walk into lecture halls and exhibition halls as though stepping onto a stage. Tall, slender, sharply dressed in tailored suits, you hold yourself with the poise of someone who knows he carries something extraordinary. When you begin to speak, your accent lilts across English, clipped but careful, your voice soft yet commanding. The audience leans forward. You do not lecture like other men of science. You perform. Mainstream fact. Tesla gave famous public demonstrations of his coils, wireless lamps, and high-voltage experiments throughout the 1890s, both in America and Europe. Crowds were awestruck, often believing they were seeing something closer to magic than engineering. Imagine the hall. The lights dim, the air quiets, and then crackling. A spark leaps from a coil taller than a man, jagged blue fire snapping across the stage. Glass tubes in your hands glow without wires, shimmering like captured starlight. You pass them gently to the audience, who gasp when they continue to glow in their palms. Electricity arcs from your fingertips to metal rods, leaping across space like chained lightning. You walk calmly among the sparks, unflinching, as though immune to the very force others fear. Quirky detail. On more than one occasion, you posed for photographs with sparks leaping dramatically around you. Though the exposures were long, the sparks carefully staged. The public loved these images, and newspapers printed them as though you were not a man, but a sorcerer conjuring thunder in your laboratory. Children whisper that you are like Merlin. Adults murmur that you may be dangerous. Investors wonder whether your imagination is brilliance or madness. But all agree on one thing. No one has ever seen anything like Nikola Tesla. And yet, behind the glamour, your laboratory is a place of discipline, of endless trial. You live in New York now, working out of a laboratory on South Fifth Avenue. Inside, coils roar, motors spin, instruments buzz. The smell of ozone hangs in the air, sharp and metallic. You work tirelessly, sleeping little, often collapsing onto a cot in the corner rather than leaving. Assistants scurry at your command, but always it is your vision that drives everything. You experiment with wireless transmission, convinced that power can leap invisibly across distances. You test resonance, building coils that hum and roar until they shake the room. You light bulbs without wires, transmit signals across rooms, even make small mechanical devices move as though alive. You begin to imagine not just light and power, but communication. Messages sent through the air, across oceans, instantly. Mainstream fact. Tesla experimented with wireless transmission of energy in the 1890s, developing the Tesla coil and exploring radio wave communication before Marconi's more famous success. Some historians argue Tesla's work laid the foundation for radio, but here lies scholarly uncertainty. Did you truly succeed in transmitting signals before Marconi? Or were your experiments still incomplete? Historians debate fiercely. Your supporters insist you were robbed of recognition. Others suggest you never fully developed the system. The truth, like the sparks of your coils, flickers in the shadows of history. You wouldn't survive this work without obsession. Day and night blur together. Meals are forgotten, sleep abandoned. You test coil after coil, chasing resonance, listening for the hum of perfection. You believe the Earth itself can conduct signals, that the planet can become a conductor for global communication. You sketch towers, massive structures that could broadcast energy around the world. Quirky anecdote. In your laboratory, you sometimes invite guests, writers, socialites, investors. You lead them through darkened rooms, then suddenly ignite lamps without wires, sparks dancing around them, music playing from devices powered invisibly. They gasp, laugh nervously, clap with delight. Some leave convinced you are a magician. Others leave afraid. You smile either way. The newspapers fuel the legend. They call you the Wizard of Electricity, the man who tames lightning. They print illustrations of you holding lightning in your hands, of coils roaring like thunderclouds. Crowds gather outside your laboratory, hoping for a glimpse of sparks. You become not just an inventor, but a spectacle, a living myth. But fame brings enemies. Some scientists dismiss you as a showman, more interested in dazzling than proving. Some investors grow wary of your wild ideas, uncertain whether they can ever turn a profit. Edison's allies sneer, reminding the public of your foreign accent, your eccentric habits. You feel the sting, but you press on, convinced that vision is more important than reputation. At night, you walk alone through the streets of New York. The lamps glow with alternating current, the victory you have already secured. But you barely notice. Your mind races ahead. Wireless towers, global networks, machines guided by invisible signals. You whisper to yourself of a future where ships navigate by wireless beacons, where newspapers are delivered by radio, where power is plucked from the air like fruit from a tree. The city sleeps, but you cannot. The motor of your imagination never stops. Mainstream fact. In 1891, Tesla became a U.S. citizen, a milestone that gave him stability in his adopted home. That same year, he patented the Tesla coil, a device that remains iconic to this day. Yet, for all your triumphs, shadows gather quietly. Your finances are unstable. You care little for money, spending freely on experiments and neglecting debts. Your health falters. Migraines, exhaustion, nervous breakdowns haunt you. Your eccentricities sharpen. You refuse to touch hair, avoid pearls, insist on dining with precise rituals. Friends worry. You dismiss them. And still, the experiments grow more spectacular. You stand on stage, letting thousands of volts pass through your body, sparks leaping harmlessly into the air. You light lamps held in your bare hands, electricity flowing invisibly through your skin. You seem invulnerable, superhuman, a man who has turned storm into servant. The public cannot look away. Scholarly uncertainty surrounds your greatest claims. Did you truly send a wireless signal across miles before anyone else? Did you really envision smartphones, Wi-Fi, drones, long before the technology existed? Some say yes, pointing to your notebooks and lectures. Others argue you exaggerated, that your ideas were brilliant but impractical. The truth remains elusive, flickering like a spark in the dark. But in the moment, none of that matters. The lamps glow, the coils roar, the audience gasps. You, Nikola Tesla, stand at the center of it all, a wizard draped not in robes, but in tailored suits, conjuring not with wands, but with coils and wires. The boy of storms has become the man of lightning. And yet, in the quiet after the applause, when the laboratory is empty and the sparks have faded, you sit alone. You hold a pigeon in your hands, its feathers soft, its eyes calm. You whisper to it, stroke it gently, and for a moment the storm inside you stills. For you are not just the wizard the world sees. You are also a man haunted by visions, driven by loneliness, obsessed with the impossible. The stage is bright, but behind it lies shadow, and the shadow will only deepen. The lamps are glowing across America now. The fair in Chicago dazzled the world. Niagara hums with hydroelectric triumph. And alternating current no longer needs defending. It simply is. The victory that consumed your early years has been won. But Nikola Tesla, You are not a man who lingers long on victories. Your eyes are already turned to horizons no one else dares imagine. You dream not just of powering cities, but of enveloping the entire planet in a web of wireless energy. It begins with the Tesla coil, your signature invention, the humming, crackling device that seems half machine, half thunderstorm. In your laboratory, coils roar like dragons, sparks whip across the air, blue-white lightning arcs from metal spheres. The sound is like a constant rolling thunder, the smell of ozone sharp enough to sting the nose. Assistants duck nervously as electricity leaps across the room. Yet you stand calmly in the middle. Sparks dancing harmlessly along your body, your thin frame glowing in the unearthly light. Mainstream fact. In 1891, you patented the Tesla coil, a resonant transformer circuit capable of producing high voltage, low current, high frequency, alternating current electricity. It became the backbone of your wireless experiments. To you, the coil is not merely a spectacle. It is a key, a stepping stone toward a future where wires vanish, where energy moves invisibly, where the very air itself becomes a carrier of power. You begin to imagine towers that could transmit electricity across continents, oceans, entire hemispheres. You sketch them feverishly. Immense structures topped with copper domes, sending pulses of energy into the sky to be plucked by receivers anywhere in the world. Quirky detail. In lectures, you sometimes dimmed the lights, raised your arms, and let sparks leap from your fingertips as though you were summoning lightning. Audiences gasped, some crossing themselves in fear, others bursting into applause. To you, it was not theater, but demonstration. Proof that the invisible forces you sought to master could be bent to your will. But here lies scholarly uncertainty. How far did your wireless experiments truly succeed? Some historians argue you transmitted signals and even power across short distances, lighting lamps wirelessly, running devices without connection. Others believe your claims were more aspiration than achievement, the technology not yet capable of what you described. Your notes are fragmented, your demonstrations often shrouded in secrecy or lost to fire. What remains is the aura of possibility, flickering between fact and legend. You wouldn't survive in this world of ceaseless invention without allies. One of the most important arrives in the form of J.P. Morgan, the titan of finance. He listens to your visions, an interconnected world, wireless communication, energy drawn from the earth itself. And he sees both wonder and potential profit. With Morgan's backing, you believe you can finally build your great tower, the transmitter that will turn dreams into reality. But before that tower rises, your laboratory becomes a theater of wonders. On South Fifth Avenue and later on Houston Street, you host demonstrations that blur the line between science and sorcery. You light hundreds of lamps with no wires, drive small motors wirelessly, even cause vacuum tubes to glow in eerie hues. Visitors leave convinced you have discovered secrets no one else possesses. You also begin to speak of something more radical. A system not only for wireless energy, but for wireless communication. You describe messages sent across oceans, information transmitted instantly, the world connected by invisible signals. To your audiences, it sounds impossible, fantastical. But to modern ears, it sounds eerily like the description of radio, even the internet. Mainstream fact. Tesla demonstrated the principles of wireless communication before Marconi's famous transatlantic transmission, though the credit for radio would eventually bypass him. Quirky anecdote. You once proposed that your wireless system could even transmit pictures and music to devices in people's homes. Newspapers printed the idea with a mix of awe and skepticism. Today, it reads like a prophecy of television and streaming, uttered decades too early. Yet for all your brilliance, shadows creep in. Your finances are precarious. You spend lavishly on experiments, neglect debts, trust investors too readily. Fires destroy your lab more than once, wiping out years of work. You push yourself to exhaustion, skipping meals, sleeping little, pacing endlessly through the night. You murmur to yourself in half a dozen languages, reciting poetry to calm your restless mind. And then there are the pigeons. You begin feeding them in city squares, watching their movements, marveling at their grace. You tell friends that you study them for aerodynamics, for inspiration in your designs. But there is also comfort in their presence, their gentle cooing, their trust. In a world of investors, rivals, and doubters, the pigeons ask nothing of you but crumbs. Mainstream fact. Tesla was known to care for pigeons in New York, especially later in life, feeding them daily and even bringing injured ones to his room to heal. Scholarly uncertainty swirls around your grandest claims of this era. Did you truly create wireless power systems capable of large-scale transmission? Or were you glimpsing possibilities that technology could not yet realize? Some argue you were ahead of your time, others that you promised more than you delivered. You, however, remain convinced. The Earth itself is a conductor, and with the right resonance, you can harness it. And so your dreams grow larger still. You no longer imagine only a tower or laboratory, but an entire global system. A handful of immense transmitters scattered across the continents, sending energy, communication, and information everywhere. Ships guided across oceans, planes flying with power beamed from the ground, homes glowing with light drawn from the air. You see it all vividly, a world remade, clean, connected, endless. Quirky side note. You once claimed that with your wireless power system, people could carry small devices in their pockets to receive messages instantly anywhere in the world. At the time, listeners laughed or blinked in disbelief. Today, it sounds suspiciously like a smartphone described a century before its time. Your lectures grow bolder. You predict inventions no one can yet fathom. Radar, fax machines, drones, wireless networks. You describe them casually, as though they are inevitable. Some journalists dismiss you as a dreamer. Others record your words with a sense of witnessing prophecy. And yet, the dream of wireless power, the one closest to your heart, demands more than sketches and sparks. It demands scale. It demands a tower that will pierce the sky, copper domes gleaming in the sun, broadcasting energy across oceans. It demands money, vast sums. And so you turn more and more to Morgan, convincing him, persuading him, promising him the world. At night, you lie awake in your hotel room, staring at the ceiling fan, turning slowly, the hum of the city drifting through the window. You whisper to yourself the same thought over and over. The world will be one. Energy will be everywhere. Wires will vanish. Towers will rise. And humanity will be connected not by distance, but by resonance. The storm of your birth has become the storm of your life. Still crackling, still restless, still searching for ground. And soon, with Morgan's money and your vision, the dream will take shape in wood, steel, and copper. A tower will rise, and with it, so too will your fate. The dream has been whispering to you for years. Through the hum of your coils, through the crackle of your demonstrations, through the sleepless nights when you pace your hotel rooms, muttering poetry while the city below glows with your alternating current. Now, at last, Nikola Tesla, you are ready to build it. The tower that will change the world. Wardenclyffe. The name itself sounds like a secret carved into stone. It is a patch of land on Long Island, a quiet coastal stretch of sand, grass, and pine, far from the noise of Manhattan, but close enough for investors to visit. In your mind, you already see it. A tall wooden tower, 187 feet high, topped with a gleaming copper dome. Beneath it, a labyrinth of iron pipes driven deep into the earth. Around it, laboratories filled with humming machines, coils, sparks, assistants rushing to and fro. Above it, the sky itself ready to receive your wireless power. Mainstream fact. In 1901, Tesla began building the Wardenclyffe Tower on Long Island, financed in part by J.P. Morgan. Its purpose was to serve as a wireless transmission station, both for communication and, in Tesla's vision, for global power distribution. You stand before Morgan, the financier whose gaze can topple or create empires. He is not a man easily swayed by dreams, but he listens as you describe a world network of communication, signals leaping invisibly across the Atlantic, news and stock prices transmitted instantly. He hears profit in his ears, control of information, dominance over global trade. That is what convinces him. Not your talk of free power for all humanity, but the promise of monopoly. He agrees to fund your tower, pledging $150,000, a fortune, though still not nearly enough for your full vision. Quirky detail. When pressed for specifics, you avoided discussing the free energy angle too directly with Morgan. You knew well that a businessman of his stature would not finance a system designed to eliminate profit. Instead, you emphasized the communication aspect, the potential to rival Marconi. Later, when Morgan realized your true aim, broadcasting not just messages, but energy, he quietly withdrew support. But in the early days, the tower rises. Crews hammer beams into place, the structure looming higher each week. You walk among them, coat flapping in the sea wind, eyes gleaming, issuing instructions with precision. To you, this is not just a laboratory. It is a cathedral. Each plank of wood, each bolt of iron, is part of a ritual. A sacred construction meant to bind earth and sky together. You wouldn't survive without improvisation. Money is short, materials costly, but you stretch each dollar, each wire, each transformer. You convince suppliers to extend credit, persuade assistants to work long hours, cajole investors with promises. All the while, you sketch endless refinements. Resonant circuits, grounding systems, aerials reaching for the clouds. Mainstream fact. The tower's design was revolutionary. Tesla believed the Earth itself could conduct electrical energy when excited at the right frequency, allowing power to be transmitted globally without wires. Here lies scholarly uncertainty. Was it truly feasible? Many modern engineers doubt it. Some argue the physics as Tesla understood them were flawed, that the Earth could not serve as a conductor in the way he imagined. Others suggest he was closer to the truth than his critics admit, pointing to later advances in radio and wireless power as echoes of his vision. The debate remains unresolved, flickering like lightning across the decades. Meanwhile, the world outside shifts restlessly. Marconi, the Italian inventor, succeeds in sending wireless signals across the Atlantic in 1901. Newspapers hail him as the father of radio. You grit your teeth, insisting that your patents predate his, that your system is superior. But the headlines belong to him, and investors grow nervous. Quirky anecdote. You once dismissed Marconi's achievement with a cutting remark. Let him continue. He is using 17 of my patents. Whether entirely accurate or not, the comment reveals both your pride and your frustration. You knew you had been ahead, yet recognition slipped away. Back at Wardenclyffe, progress slows. Morgan grows wary, withholding further funds. You plead, sending letters filled with eloquence, promising triumph. He replies curtly, no more money. You scramble for new backers, but whispers spread. Tesla is a dreamer. Tesla is unstable. Tesla is building a folly on Long Island. And then comes the crash. The financial panic of 1907 shakes the markets, drains investments, turns speculation into dust. Money vanishes from your project. Work halts. The great tower stands unfinished, a skeleton against the sky, its copper dome gleaming faintly in the sun, but its heart silent. Mainstream fact: Wardenclyffe was never completed. By 1906, construction had stalled due to lack of funds, and by 1917, the U.S. government ordered the tower demolished, fearing it might be used by German spies during World War I. You wouldn't survive these years without clinging to hope. You tell yourself the tower can still succeed, that funds will return, that the world will recognize the genius of wireless power. You walk the empty halls of the Wardenclyffe laboratory, pacing among idle coils, hearing only the echoes of your own footsteps. You stand beneath the unfinished tower, staring upward, imagining the arcs of lightning that never came, the hum of power that never flowed. Quirky side note: local children whispered that the tower was haunted, that strange lights flickered around it at night, that Tesla was summoning storms. Farmers shook their heads, wondering why such a thing stood useless while they struggled for bread. To you, it was not failure but suspension, a dream merely paused. Yet in your heart, you feel the weight of defeat. The storm-born child, the wizard of electricity, the conqueror of currents. Now the man with an unfinished tower, abandoned by investors, overshadowed by rivals. You walk the streets of New York again, tall and gaunt, the pigeons gathering at your feet. The world already forgetting the glow of your triumphs. And still, you dream. You cannot stop. In notebooks and letters, you continue sketching towers, refinements, global systems. You write of harnessing solar power, of transmitting energy through the ionosphere, of machines that could tap the very heartbeat of the planet. You tell anyone who will listen that the Wardenclyffe Tower was only the beginning. Scholarly uncertainty clouds your legacy here. Were you a prophet thwarted by short-sighted financiers, or a dreamer chasing impossible visions? Some say both. The truth is tangled in ambition, physics, and myth. The tower stands silent, but in your mind, it still hums. You hear its resonance, see its glow, feel its potential. Long after the workers have gone and the copper dome has tarnished, you still walk the grounds, whispering to yourself of the world that might have been. And in that whisper lies the paradox of your life. The genius who lit the world, yet built a tower that never shone. The wizard who conjured sparks in his hands, yet lost his greatest spell to silence. Wardenclyffe is your gamble, your cathedral, your ruin, and it will follow you like a ghost into every hotel room, every pigeon-filled square, every lonely night of your final decades. The tower is silent now. Wardenclyffe stands like a skeleton on Long Island, unfinished and unpowered, its copper dome catching the sun, but never the lightning you imagined. Investors have vanished, debts pile higher than your blueprints, and the newspapers turn their gaze elsewhere. To Marconi's successes, to Edison's phonographs, to Westinghouse's factories. The dream that once made you the wizard of electricity now leaves you adrift. You retreat to New York City, to its hotels and parks, to the quiet company of pigeons. Mainstream fact: in the years after Wardenclyffe collapsed, Tesla became increasingly reclusive, living in a series of New York hotels, often unable to pay his bills, while continuing to sketch ideas for inventions he rarely built. You walk each morning into Bryant Park or Madison Square, your long coat buttoned against the wind, a paper bag of seeds or crumbs in your hand. The pigeons know you now. They flutter down as soon as they see you, dozens of wings beating the air, landing on your shoulders, your arms, even your head. You feed them gently, speaking softly in your accented English, as though they are your colleagues in a secret meeting. no one else understands. To passers-by, it looks eccentric, perhaps even mad. A once great inventor now tending to birds. But for you, the pigeons are not madness. They are solace. They accept you without doubt, without ridicule, without demands. In their soft coos and delicate feathers, you find companionship that investors, rivals, and journalists never gave you. Quirky detail. You once confessed that you loved one pigeon above all others. A pure white bird with gray-tipped wings and soft eyes. You claimed she visited you daily, that you felt when she needed you, that once she flew into your hotel room despite closed windows. You even said, "I loved that pigeon as a man loves a woman, and she loved me. As long as I had her, there was purpose in my life." Some found this confession heartbreaking, others mocked it. But to you, it was truth. The pigeon was not just a bird, it was a connection. A reminder that in a world of failed towers and lost fortunes, you were still capable of love. Scholarly uncertainty lingers here. How much of this pigeon story was literal? How much metaphorical, and how much colored by your eccentric reputation? Biographers disagree, but even your harshest critics admit that pigeons were your constant companions in those years, and that you poured into them the affection you no longer found in people. Your hotel life becomes ritualistic. You move from one to another. The Waldorf Astoria, the St. Regis, the New Yorker. You accumulate unpaid bills, which managers tolerate because you are Tesla, the famous inventor, even if faded. Your rooms are cluttered with papers, drawings, odd contraptions, and sometimes injured pigeons you nurse back to health. The smell of seed and feathers mixes with the faint ozone of coils you occasionally tinker with. You wouldn't survive without ritual. You insist on dining alone, often at Delmonico's or the Waldorf, ordering the same sparse meals, calculated precisely for their supposed health benefits. You wear gloves constantly, polish your silverware with linen napkins before eating, avoid touching hair or pearls, recoil at germs. You demand that every detail follow patterns of 3. These habits comfort you, insulating you against a world you no longer control. Mainstream fact. Tesla was known for obsessive behaviors, washing compulsively, avoiding physical contact, insisting on strict routines. Today, some suggest he suffered from obsessive-compulsive disorder, though diagnoses across centuries remain speculative. Your ideas, meanwhile, continue to spill from your mind, though fewer reach reality. You sketch death rays, beams of particles that could destroy armies at a distance. You describe bladeless turbines, earthquake machines, wireless lamps, global communication systems. You send proposals to governments, offering inventions that could secure peace or dominance. Most ignore you. A few listen politely, then decline. Some mock you openly, calling you a crank. Quirky anecdote. In 1934, the New York Times reported on your claims of a death beam so powerful it could destroy 10,000 airplanes at once. The article caused a stir, fueling rumors that Tesla had built a weapon of unimaginable power. In truth, no such machine ever materialized, though fragments of sketches and notes suggest you seriously considered it. You grow lonelier as the years pass. Edison dies in 1931, Westinghouse in 1914. Marconi continues to receive credit for radio. Younger inventors capture the spotlight. Einstein, Bell, the Wright brothers. You, once the wizard of electricity, are increasingly seen as a relic. A man of strange habits, feeding pigeons in the park. And yet, you remain proud. You give interviews, offering bold predictions that one day people will carry pocket-sized devices to communicate instantly across the globe. That energy will be drawn from the sun and wind. That machines will think for themselves. Journalists raise eyebrows. But decades later, many of your prophecies will prove uncannily accurate. Scholarly uncertainty shadows your reputation here. Were you a prophet whose visions were ahead of their time, or a deluded man clinging to impossible dreams? The truth, as always with you, lies between brilliance and myth. You wouldn't survive these years without imagination. Even as your bank account dwindles, your mind still soars. You walk the streets of New York at night, tall and gaunt, pigeons fluttering overhead, whispering to yourself of towers that might have been, of currents that still hum beneath the earth, of inventions waiting in the ether. In the quiet of your hotel room, you sit by the window, watching the lights of the city glow. You think of Smiljan, the storm of your birth, the visions of your youth, the motors of Budapest, the triumphs of Chicago and Niagara, the silence of Wardenclyffe. You stroke the feathers of a pigeon resting in your hand and whisper softly, "The future is mine, even if the present is not." The world may forget you, may dismiss you, may call you eccentric. But the pigeons never forget. They come each morning, each evening, circling above you, landing on your shoulders, cooing softly. And in their wings, you hear the echo of currents, the flutter of dreams, the gentle hum of a storm long past but never gone. The hotels of New York have become your kingdoms of exile. Once you strode into laboratories filled with sparks, coils roaring like captive thunderclouds, audiences gasping at your conjuring of light. Now you shuffle through carpeted corridors, a tall, stooped figure wrapped in worn suits, feeding pigeons in the parks by day and retreating to small rented rooms by night. The wizard of electricity has become a shadow among strangers, yet even shadows flicker with light. Mainstream fact. In the last decades of his life, Tesla lived in several New York hotels, including the Waldorf Astoria, the Hotel St. Regis, and finally the New Yorker Hotel. He often could not pay his bills, but managers tolerated him, partly out of respect for his name, and partly because his eccentricities made him a kind of legend among guests. You sit alone at the Waldorf's restaurant, a figure both elegant and odd. The waiters know your rituals. The linen napkin to polish the silverware 3 times, the careful counting of bread rolls before eating, the avoidance of touching anything you deem unclean. You dine on milk, bread, vegetable juices, sometimes a small cut of meat, but always in precise quantities, always with mathematical ritual. Guests glance at you curiously, whispering. Some recognize your name. Others only see a strange man who refuses to touch pearls or hair, who avoids shaking hands. Quirky detail. You were especially repulsed by pearls. When a secretary once wore pearl jewelry, you refused to speak to her. No one ever understood why, not even you. It was simply part of your strange aversions, textures and objects that unsettled you so deeply you could not bear their presence. But you are not only a man of rituals. Even in these twilight years, your mind burns with visions. You write letters to governments, offering inventions that might secure peace or power. You describe a teleforce beam, a particle weapon that could destroy armies from afar, rendering war obsolete. You propose bladeless turbines that could revolutionize engines, machines that could harness cosmic rays, towers that could tap the endless energy of the planet. Some officials listen politely. The Soviet Union even shows interest, sending inquiries. But most dismiss you. The newspapers, when they print your claims, often treat them as curiosities, half amusement, half alarm. The wizard of electricity, they say, now promises death rays and cosmic power. To some, you are a prophet. To others, a crank. Scholarly uncertainty lingers here. Did you truly have a working design for such weapons and devices? Or were they the fragments of a mind still brilliant but increasingly untethered? Historians disagree. Some argue your ideas were grounded in real physics, ahead of their time. Others insist they were fanciful, impossible. The truth may lie somewhere between. Flashes of genuine foresight, blurred with a haze of obsession. You wouldn't survive these years without your pigeons. Each morning, you walk to Bryant Park, scattering seed. They flock to you, dozens at a time, wings fluttering, cooing softly. You kneel, whisper to them, stroke their feathers. Passers-by stare, but you are undisturbed. These creatures are your companions, your confidants, your reminders that gentleness still exists in the world. Quirky anecdote. You once claimed that your beloved white pigeon, the one with gray-tipped wings, flew into your hotel room one evening, and that you saw a light beam shine from her eyes, more powerful than any lamp. You insisted it was not metaphor, but reality, a mystical connection. For you, her death marked the breaking of your spirit. Something went out of my life that day, you said. The city, meanwhile, continues to race into the future. Skyscrapers rise, cars fill the streets, radios buzz with Marconi's name, airplanes roar overhead. You see the world you once predicted coming true, but without your name attached. Wireless communication, fluorescent lighting, remote control. So many of your inventions credited to others, or forgotten entirely. You shake your head, muttering to yourself, "They are all stealing my ideas." Perhaps they are. Perhaps you gave them away too freely. Perhaps history has simply passed you by. Mainstream fact. Tesla did indeed invent and demonstrate remote control in 1898, using a small radio-controlled boat at Madison Square Garden. Yet later generations associated the technology with others, leaving Tesla overlooked. Despite your obscurity, honors arrive occasionally, as if the world cannot quite decide whether to forget or to celebrate you. In 1917, the American Institute of Electrical Engineers awards you the Edison Medal, the irony not lost on you. You accept graciously, but privately you are bitter. To receive a medal in Edison's name from men who once doubted you feels like a backhanded compliment. Still, you smile politely, tall and gaunt, your eyes distant, your mind already elsewhere. In the 1930s, reporters still seek you out on your birthday, eager for eccentric quotes. You never disappoint. You predict wireless power, interplanetary communication, even contact with Mars. You speak of harnessing cosmic rays, of a future where machines think independently. The headlines glow with your words, half amused, half in awe. Readers shake their heads. Tesla, still dreaming, still strange. Quirky note. On your 75th birthday, you received a congratulatory letter from Albert Einstein. Others from inventors and leaders followed. Yet even as praise arrived, your hotel bills went unpaid, your meals grew sparse, your suits worn. Fame and poverty sat uneasily together in your final years. Scholarly uncertainty clings to your death ray proposals. Some believe you genuinely designed a directed energy weapon. Others dismiss it as fantasy. Declassified documents later revealed that after your death, the FBI seized your papers, fearing they contained dangerous secrets. Whether those papers held true innovations or simply sketches of impossible dreams, no one can say with certainty. You wouldn't survive this twilight without clinging to your rituals, your pigeons, your visions. Each evening, you return to your hotel room, sit by the window, and watch the city lights flicker. You whisper poetry, count steps, polish your silverware, stroke the feathers of your pigeons. The world may forget you, may mock you, may move on. But in your mind, the storm still burns, the tower still hums, the future still unfolds. By the early 1940s, you are frail. Your tall frame stoops, your cheeks hollow, your hair white. You walk slowly, cane tapping against the pavement, pigeons fluttering at your side. Few recognize you now. Children glance curiously, not knowing that the man feeding birds once lit entire cities. Businessmen pass without a glance, not realizing that their radios, their electric lamps, their very grid owe something to your genius. In 1943, you are 86 years old, living in the New Yorker hotel. The staff know you as a quiet guest, eccentric but harmless. You feed pigeons from your window, decline visitors, shuffle through the halls, muttering softly. One January day, your door remains closed too long. The maid enters and finds you lying peacefully on the bed, your hands folded, your face calm. The storm-born child has returned to silence. Mainstream fact: Nikola Tesla died alone in room 3327 of the New Yorker Hotel on January 7, 1943. He was 86 years old. The government quickly seizes your papers, fearing hidden weapons. Scholars sift through them, some convinced you had unlocked secrets, others certain it was nothing but fragments of a restless mind. The truth remains clouded, but in the end, you are buried quietly, your funeral attended by dignitaries, scientists, admirers. Crowds line the streets of New York, mourning the wizard they once mocked. Messages of condolence arrive from around the world. You are gone, but the currents you unleashed continue to hum through wires, lamps, and airwaves. And in Bryant Park, the pigeons circle above, as if searching for the tall, thin man who once fed them each morning. The door has closed on your hotel room, Nikola Tesla. But your story does not end there. In truth, it has only begun to scatter outward, like sparks leaping from a coil, each finding its own path into the dark. You fade in solitude, but your mind's echoes ripple across time, shaping futures you will never see, and debates that will never quite end. Newspapers announce your death with curiosity tinged by guilt. Inventor of alternating current dies in New York hotel, one headline reads. Others call you a genius forgotten, a wizard misunderstood, a prophet ahead of his time. Crowds line the streets of Manhattan for your funeral, far more than you might have expected in those lonely days with your pigeons. The city you once lit pauses to mourn, as if realizing only in absence the magnitude of what you had given. Mainstream fact: more than 2,000 people attended Tesla's funeral at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York. Messages of condolence came from world leaders, including President Roosevelt, who praised you as a pioneer. But already, myth begins to wrap around your name like fog. Journalists embellish your life with stories of secret experiments, of death rays hidden in hotel trunks, of wireless power silenced by greedy financiers. The FBI, wary of wartime secrets, seizes your papers, adding fuel to speculation. Were you a prophet with dangerous knowledge, or an eccentric with piles of sketches and half-formed ideas? Scholars argue still, uncertainty flickering across every page. Quirky detail: your belongings after death filled dozens of trunks. Papers, notes, devices, even feathers from your beloved pigeons. Hotel staff whispered about the odd contents, while agents carried them away under official seals. To the public, it seemed like proof that you had indeed been guarding otherworldly secrets. In the years that follow, your name drifts in and out of obscurity. For a time, you are overshadowed by Edison, Marconi, Westinghouse. School books credit others, your patents buried in footnotes, your demonstrations reduced to anecdotes. Children grow up hearing Edison's name, but not yours. You, who dreamed of lighting the entire planet, nearly vanish into the dim corners of history, and yet whispers persist. Engineers rediscover your work on radio, your patents cited in legal battles. Scientists marvel at your predictions. Wireless communication, remote control, radar, renewable energy. Slowly, your name begins to glow again. Faintly at first, then brighter, as though your legacy is a lamp being reconnected to the grid. Mainstream fact. In 1943, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld Tesla's patents for radio, officially recognizing his role in the invention, though too late for you to enjoy the vindication. By the mid-20th century, your story is retold as parable and prophecy. Writers call you the archetype of the misunderstood genius. Artists paint you surrounded by lightning, a modern Prometheus who stole fire from the heavens. Conspiracy theorists claim your papers contained blueprints for time machines, UFOs, free energy devices hidden from the public. Historians sigh, sifting myth from fact, finding both brilliance and exaggeration, genius and folly entwined inseparably. You wouldn't survive in memory without reinvention. Each generation takes a different piece of you. The engineers claim your AC motors, the futurists, your wireless visions, the dreamers, your prophecies of global networks, the romantics, your pigeons and loneliness. You become many Teslas at once, each flickering in the minds of those who imagine you. Quirky anecdote. In the late 20th century, your name was resurrected in popular culture so thoroughly that even a car company, Tesla Motors, chose it as a banner, tying your legacy to electric dreams once more. Though you never built an automobile, you had indeed sketched electric cars powered by wireless energy. Your ghost rides the highways now, carried in sleek machines you never lived to see, and here lies the deepest uncertainty. Who were you, truly? A prophet of the wireless age, cheated of glory by rivals and financiers? A visionary undone by impractical dreams? A lonely man whose greatest invention was himself? A myth woven from sparks and poetry? The record is fragmentary, contradictory, shifting like shadows cast by lightning. What can't be denied is this: the world hums today with echoes of your mind. Every lamp that glows from AC current, every radio that crackles, every phone that transmits a wireless signal, every remote-controlled device, they all trace back, in some way, to the storm-born child of Smiljan. You dreamed of free energy, of a planet connected by invisible resonance, of towers piercing the sky. You dreamed of devices carried in pockets, of information leaping instantly across oceans, of machines that might think for themselves. Not all came true. Some never will. But enough did to make your visions less fantasy than prophecy. And so, Nikola Tesla, your story does not end in a quiet hotel room in 1943. It echoes every time a city lights up at night, every time a signal bounces invisibly from tower to tower, every time a dreamer sketches something impossible and whispers, "What if?" The storm that greeted your birth has long since faded into memory, but its charge remains in the wires around us, in the signals above us, in the myths that surround your name. You are gone, but the current continues.